The helicopter flying above the Sinai Desert in United Nations colours is Australian. It's one of 4 from No. 5 Squadron RAAF, serving with United Nations forces in the Middle East. Weekend magazine reporter Richard Portman has been in the Middle East looking at the role they played during the Egypt-Israel peace negotiations and how their task in the Sinai is soon to end.
The Royal Australian Air Force helicopter contingent is operating with the United Nations Emergency Force in the Sinai Desert, which is this huge area down through here. We have Egypt to the west with the Suez Canal running from north to south from Port Said down to Suez, and to the east we have the state of Israel. We are patrolling with United Nations Emergency Force ground forces the buffer zone, which effectively separates the Egyptian territory and Israeli territory.
For Wing Commander Peter Ring and the air crews under his command, the Suez Canal has become a familiar landmark as they fly daily into the Sinai buffer zone, separating Egyptian and Israeli forces. The United Nations is overly fond of acronyms and abbreviations, and Austair, as the Australian helicopter unit has been dubbed, operates out of the Egyptian canal town of Ismailia, well known to thousands of Australian servicemen from the Second World War. Home for this present-day Australian contingent is the grandly named Sinai Palace, a typically Egyptian establishment which, until most of its floors were taken over by the Australians 3 years ago, served Ismailia as an adequate, if not a luxurious, family hotel. The Sinai Palace's lack of plumbing and its somewhat run-down appearance have led to criticisms in Australia about the living standards here. In the day-to-day bustle of work and relaxation, the men who actually live here seem to have few enough complaints. The Australian helicopters are from No. 5 Squadron, based at RAAF Fairbairn near Canberra. They're Iroquois, of the type which saw service in Vietnam. Now they're flying in the desert heat from the former British airfield of El Gala on the outskirts of Ismailia. Austair is part of UNEF, another acronym standing for the United Nations Emergency Force, 4,000 international troops who have been policing the Sinai. But with the Camp David peace accords, UNEF lost its Security Council mandate to remain in the Sinai. As its various contingents head for home, the Australian pilots and air crew await their orders to depart. Maintenance in the desert, so far from home base in Australia, still poses its own special problems. Every 6 weeks, a Hercules transport aircraft flies in from Canberra, bringing spares and replacement engines to keep the Iroquois in the air. As Wing Commander Ring explains, the withdrawal of UNEF has meant a change in flying duties.
Well, for 3 years here we've been flying patrols in the Sinai Desert up and down the J line, which is the Israeli side of the buffer zone, and up and down the E line, which is the Egyptian side. Those patrols have been used to spot any infringements of the peace treaty or of the buffer zone itself. Since UNEF's mandate finished on the 24th of July, we no longer have any authorisation to fly any patrols. Mainly in the past month we've been administratively helping the 4 battalions that are deployed in the desert to withdraw some of the battalions to their home and other battalions to other United Nations missions in the area.
Flying starts with a briefing by Navy pilot Lieutenant Commander John Brown.
But the task is UN Special 8131, departing Ismailia via the southern corridor down to Aberdaeus, and drop off 2 passengers down to checkpoint 11 for a recce of the checkpoint, come back to Aberdaeus and pick up some fuel and your other 2 passengers, then back tell us the tanker is serviceable, and depart Aberdaeus via the southern corridor back to Ismailia.
Although the Australians are no longer flying regular patrols along the buffer zone, they are still called upon to carry observers from one UN post to another and to help in the gradual pullback of the United Nations forces from the Sinai. 2 days before our arrival at Ismailia, an Australian helicopter was called out at dusk to pick up a Russian soldier whose arm was torn off in a motor accident deep in the Sinai. Accompanied by a Polish doctor, the Iroquois crew successfully completed a nighttime medevac flight to which the Russian owes his life.
Okay, over the clock, please.
Austair is not a volunteer posting. The pilots, aircrew, maintenance and administrative personnel are drawn from various squadrons in Australia. There is usually one pilot and an engineering officer from the Navy. Flying in the buffer zone confirms every preconceived idea about what the Sinai Desert should be like. Endless miles of sand hills stretch below, broken by the occasional wadi or stony mountain range. The only traffic on the straight desert roads are the UN convoys, resupplying UN bases, or, more likely, moving back the various battalions of the departing emergency forces. Occasionally, rusting wreckage serves as a grim reminder of the tank battles fought out here in the 1967 war. What about the political considerations, the difficulties of making sure that you don't stray into either Egyptian or Israeli-held territory?
Well, that's not so much of a problem now because we don't do much flying up and down the E or the J lines. It was difficult before. All we had was 44-gallon drums spaced up to half a mile apart, and if they suddenly changed direction and you didn't, it was quite easy to stray, although both sides were very good about the amount of complaints they put in, which was almost minimal.
The wartime British pilots who flew from El Gala would probably marvel at Austair's tarmac-side swimming pool and barbecue, but probably not at the Australian-style initiative that's gone into making the best of local conditions. The sauna was a gift from Finnish soldiers serving with the UN. Building it and the pool are just two of the projects aimed at making life here that much more pleasant. When the first Austair contingent arrived here in 1975, they operated out of their hotel rooms at the Sinai Palace. Since then, they've built an air-conditioned office which houses the administrative and clerical staff as well as the briefing room.
It's a time to salvation for everybody.
Back on the top floor of the Sinai Palace Hotel in Ismailia, the bar opens for several hours after the evening meal. Despite the newspaper reports of living conditions here, there are few complaints to be heard at the end of a long working day.
We're typical Australians. We scrounge from the Canadians. Things fall off the back of trucks, and you know, that's basically how we keep ourselves going up here.
Is it a long time between those 6 weekly flights when the herd comes in from Canberra?
Sure is. It's about 500 cartons of tuis.
What about missing families? A lot of you are married men. It must be a pretty long time for 6 months.
Yeah, it is. 6 months is a long time. I'll be glad to go home. I'll be home in 15 and a wakey, as we say. 15 days and one sleep, and I'm on the herc home. It'll be good.
How much longer have you got to go?
Until December 10th I'll leave. I'm looking forward to it. Be glad to get home. Don't get very much mail up here.
But if you had the choice of staying back in Australia or coming over here the second time round, would you do it?
No, I wouldn't do it. I think the conditions we're living in over here are the best available in the area. I don't think we can improve them very much, but I guess we've just got to cop it sweet.
How much effort goes into improving everything around, fixing up the mess, fixing up the bar? Generally mucking in and making projects.
Yeah,
to make
everybody
life
gets
easier.
together. Everybody gets together and has a go at things. We all sort of team in together and do things, paint things, try and fix things up. Down at El Gala at Austair headquarters down there, we've now got, the pool's functioning well, and we've got a barbecue, and we've got all different things, a sauna. So really, as far as facilities go, we're not too badly off.
Basically, everything's on a self-help basis up here. You do your own thing.
With the newfound peace between Egypt and Israel, the Australians are now waiting for final word on their future. Most would like to continue their role in the Sinai, But the future of Austair has yet to be decided far away in Canberra and New York.
I know it's worth $20,000.